away from the nightmares, and giving us all the love. So tonight we're going to put all our love to our recipes. So let's start with our ingredients. And I hope you guys will be joining us doing together. And if anyone has any questions, please don't be shy to write down, and we're going to answer them as much as we can. So let's check out our tools. I'm taking a bowl right now, like a nice big nirosta. How do you call nirosta? Like a steel bowl. And then we're gonna have water. We're gonna have canola oil. So people may ask in this situation, can we use olive oil instead of canola oil? No, this is a recipe which you need to work with canola oil because olive oil has acidity and we don't want this acidity in our dough. And the critical ingredients now: apple cider vinegar and salt. Remember, this is a very ancient recipe. So they didn't have baking powder during those times. They didn't have baking soda. What they had the salt and they had the vinegar. And my grandmother insists that it should be apple cider vinegar. So if there are any questions that can we use the wine vinegar, grape vinegar, so my grandmother insists like it should be apple cider vinegar. So let's start. Super easy. We're going to start first of all, half cup of oil, which is I'm pouring right now. Okay, oops. Okay, perfecto. And half of it, quarter cup of water. So if you want to double this recipe, always go like this. Like it's like one oil, half of it should be water. Okay, that's the science. Now, what we're going to have here, we're going to have a little bit of, which is a teaspoon, salt, and we're going to start dissolve in our liquid. And while this is happening, I want to explain you how my grandmother explains the recipe. So when I was doing this recipe with her, I was asking how much you're putting, but she never measured. She just accepts the oil and water. She just puts the salt with her hand and apple cider. She says you're gonna put 1 teaspoon, and then she just splashes around. So it might be 2 tablespoons as well. So if it splashes around, don't worry about it. The thing is, you need to be generous about what you do. Okay, so now we have a liquid mixture, like a little bit thick because we mixed oil and water and we mixed the salt. Now, let's start doing the magic. Maggie, can you pass me the flour, please? Okay, so here I have the flour. And in the recipes, it's going to tell you 1 plus third of a quarter cup. So when I asked my grandmother, how much you going to put? She told me, when you start to feel. I'm like, what I'm supposed to feel? She said, you need to feel your ear knob. Okay, so this is the feeling. So I always touch my ear knob first. Okay, and then I just start adding up. But you can always use your measuring cups and measure it and do it also. So let's start and let's put our first quarter cup. We are not going to be in a hurry when we are doing this stove. Okay, we are not working with any kind of mixer. It's totally a handwork. Okay, so it definitely requires the second one. So we are mixing right now. Let's continue adding up. And at this point, I would sometimes hear her singing some stuff because, you know, those years they didn't have TV. They had some radio station. So she used to sing some songs. And that reminds me, every time we have some guests here, we do some ice baking games in the Delicious Israel studio, which is we ask people, what was your favorite food, what your grandmother used to do? Or what was your favorite food that you like to cook that your grandmother used to do? So if you have any answers for us, please write down to the chatting part. What's your favorite grandmother's food? And what's the favorite food that you like to do of your grandmother's favorite food? And maybe we'll learn new stuff. Okay, so we are at this point, like a very sticky, gooey thing, which is definitely not ready because we are supposed to be able to hold it. So let's continue adding up our fifth quarter. Okay. Now it's going to require something stronger to play with, which is going to be a palette and maybe some of the fingers. Okay. Let's start. So this point, I'm still not kneading the dough. I'm just folding the flour gently inside the mixture. And tell me, everyone, what's your baking information? Like, when did you start to bake? When did you first notice the baking? When did you first touch a dough? When did you first notice that making a dough actually is not such something so hard? It's just the fear of, because most people, when they come to our cooking classes, they say, I never touched the dough. I'm afraid of the dough. Every time I do, it doesn't come out right. So have you ever, any of you, passed that feeling? It's just easy peasy. I'll just follow a few rules and then it's all about the feeling. Okay, I'm adding now gently. This is the gentle parts. Yes. Now, you see, this is the birth of a dough. What we're going to do is right now, we're going to take things to under control. Let's touch. So how would you understand if a dough is ready? So first of all, I take a piece, I roll it in my hands, then I press it, and then I hold it. Up, it's about to fall, see? So there's still no gluten reaction. So I'm adding a little bit more flour, and this time I'm gonna start breaking the gluten with the kneading part. Still, I'm being very gentle. Why? Because my hands are very heated, and it can make the oil all spread around. We want the oil inside. So at this point, this thing is getting stronger. You know, kneading a dough is like taking care of a baby for me, because all you got to do is give time, food, and love. The food is the flour, obviously, in our case. Okay, let's continue. Now, let's do the second experiment. Ready? We are going to press this. Now we are going to hold it. Let's make it thinner. There you go. Now it's ready. And now let's take a test. You know what? Un petit. That's a little bit more flour.
So, Savim,
Okay.
this is Shannon. Just in case anybody missed this, your grandmother told you before you start making this that you touch your ear to know what the consistency should be. Is that right?
Yes, this part, knob or lobe. What do you call this part of the ear?
Your lobe.
Exactly. Yes, earlobe. That's the feeling that you're supposed to feel.
I love that.
Yes, but it's specifically for this dough, right? Like each dough has its own technique. So yes, a little bit
great.
more, and then we are adding. And I was wondering, any Sephardic Jews in our audience? Anyone's ancestors came from Spain, Portugal? Please raise your hands. Say hello. Anyone is familiar with the empanadas, which is the mother of the Borekitas? Let us know.
There's definitely some Sephardi Jews here, because I see some people raising hands and also saying things that they love baking, including bizcochos. I see somebody who's saying my father is from Istanbul.
Yay, Istanbul. Maybe I know your father. Would you like to write his name?
Some Greek Jews. That's great. Oh, lots of Sephardi backgrounds. That's wonderful.
It's amazing. So
Savim, as you're doing the next step, there were some questions about how to make the dough gluten-free or how to make a filling that isn't cheese. So if you can just make sure you mention that, that would be great.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the second question. The first question is how you would make it gluten-free, right?
Yes, and how would you make a filling that doesn't have cheese?
Okay, the person who doesn't want to have the cheese would like to put some meat, or instead of like a apple crumble.
Maybe. You tell us.
So these are the options that we can do because, I mean, we can totally do vegan, totally vegan. Like we can roast some spinach and we can, boil the potato and then we can mash together. And because instead of the cheese and the taste gives cheese, we need to put some stuff. We can put some sesame seeds on the top of the Borekitas because you guys saw the dough itself doesn't have any dairy. And meanwhile, I have a surprise for you. I'm sorry, I'm cutting the questions for a second to explain this next step because it's critical right now. The best part of this recipe is once it's finished, so I'm putting this part a little bit to the front, so I want you to catch the baking part also. The best part of this recipe, once it's ready, you will brush your eggs and you will put your sesame seeds and put it in the freezer, and eventually you put it to the bags. This is how, like the grandmothers used to do in Turkey and come to the house. And the best part is you'll bake it without defrosting it. Just put to your oven, set it up 180 degrees, 350 Fahrenheit, which I'm going to tell it again, by the way. So at the end of our class, we're going to have our Borekitas. Now, let's go back to our question. So the first question was, is it possible to make it gluten-free? Yes, it's possible to make it gluten-free, but it's not a promising result. So let me tell you what, because we don't have in this recipe butter or eggs, things that can combine. So there are some gluten-free flour options, which has xanthan inside. And the thing is, maybe you will need to use a little bit margarine and you will need to use or butter instead to make it more a doughy feeling. You know what I mean? Like this ear lap thing, because it's not easy to catch it when it's mostly those mixtures, gluten-free mixtures are mostly from the starch. So that's why you need to get support for the starch to start the doughy feeling. Now, once we are talking about this, I'm going to get our filling. I'm going to start working on our filling. And meanwhile, actually, if you do the dough the night before and put it in the fridge, the next day, you get an amazing result. But let's say you're in a Zoom class right now and you need to use your dough in the 10 minutes. So you do a trick. You put it to the freezer. Because all I want is to get a little bit cold. So when I touch it, the heat of my hand, remember, so it doesn't affect the texture or it doesn't make it melt away. So it's a small trick. It's in the freezer. Let's bring our potatoes. So I don't know if you guys saw the ingredients before. The potatoes are like baked, and it gives the best result if you want to do gnocchi or if you want to do pastry, so you can get rid of the juicy part. And how are you going to feel it if it's ready? Because one time I forget for 2 hours and what is left was just a crust of the skin. So there is a tricky point because they are not all in the same size. The time totally changes. To be certain, you put between 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Meanwhile, I need to wash my hands. And then you're going to start checking after an hour. How do you check it? Like old school. First with your hands, and then to be sure, maybe with a fork. So most people will say, wouldn't it safe to first check with the fork and then with the hands? Because I'm a baker, I don't have the burning feeling. So that's why I advise you this, but don't listen to me, do the other way. First check with the fork and then touch the skin. So when you touch the skin, you see the skin is a little bit off, like it's about to get peeled, it's ready, but inside is still, thick and, there's potatoes inside, I feel. So let's start peel it. I'm going to put the salt on the side because you can keep the salt again and again for sweet yams, for beetroots. Okay, let's start peeling our potatoes.
Savim, can you talk about why you do the potatoes on top of the salt?
Of course. So I do the potatoes on top of the salt because when I'm doing the pastry, I don't want the juicy part of the potatoes to make the filling leaky. So if it gets more, the salt dries out. And also it gives a little bit of taste of the salt. So it's an amazing trick to cook potatoes on the salt. And I learned it from my other spiritual grandma, an Italian mama, that she showed me how to make gnocchis. And once I discovered baking the potatoes like this, I started to use for many recipes as well. And you can always boil if it's easier, if you don't have an oven. boil it and then make sure you rest it on a piece of paper. So you mash it, and you mash it in a drainer. So you just get rid of the extra juice part, because as I said, we don't want it to be juicy. So let's start mixing our ingredients. I have here a mixture of kashkaval and mozzarella. Kashkaval is a Turkish cheese, but you can get the same texture and taste almost from Parmesan. If you don't have mozzarella, the other day I had cheddar. I just used everything, like it was a full of cheddar Borekitas. So you can always be adventurous. Like maybe you will ask, can I put brie? And it's too liquid, as I said. We still want hard stuff to be whole. Okay, let's continue. I have here feta from our shuk, which is just downstairs. We are on the top of the shuk. And when you guys come, I will show you the view, hopefully. Okay, let's continue. So we are peeling the potatoes. And let's talk about other options of the fillings, okay? As you noticed, I mentioned meat and I mentioned sweets like apple crumble. So you can use the same dough and create other kinds of taste. Maybe you're having a meat night and your house is kosher and you don't want to put cheese burritos on the plate. So what you need to do is you need to prepare like a nice meat mixture. It can be kind of asado or like stir-fried grounded beef, and then you can add the tastes, herbs, spices, and then you will use the same dough and the same closure technique and same baking technique. If you want, you can do it sweet. Then there's a little bit trick on the dough. You need to make the dough a little bit sweeter. That's require a little bit of powdered sugar in the dough. And then you can fill it with chocolate, banana, you can fill it with apple crumble. And my grandmother used to do mostly with walnuts, full of walnuts. And the thing is, I was a little bit a chubby girl, so my mother always tried to put me to diet. And every weekend I used to stay in my grandmother's house, and she used to call and tell her, don't let Sevim eat too much Borekitas. So she used to hide, but that made me a good detective, and I used to locate where's each Borekitas, where's the cheese one and where's the walnut one, which is what was covered with syrup. And I used to find it, and maybe like half of the Borekitas would disappear. And I'm glad I did that. So today I can give you the recipe. Okay, let's start getting dirty. That's why I'm going to put a glove. So it's
Savine,
easy
we
to
have
work
one
when you have a glove.
question from Nina about her dough. She said her dough seems to be crumbly and not elastic. What should she add more of to make it more elastic?
She should add gradually a little bit of more dough, And what is she kneading it with? Is she kneading the dough with a spoon, or still she's kneading the dough with her hands?
I'm Nina, if you want to answer in the chat, that's fine. She should add more. She's kneading with her
Flour.
hand. She should add more
Okay.
water, more oil, or more flour.
No, not more oil. So can she? Could it be that she added a little bit more flour than it is, or it still needs more flour? So these are the two options. So I recommend, if it's possible, to go over the steps in her mind, because our main thing was to put at least 1 cup, and third of a quarter cup was eventually coming, because in each country the amount of flour changes because of the moisture and because of the heat. And she puts like, how much oil did she put? Like actually accurate half cup, accurate quarter cup, and then the flour did entered gradually and slowly. If she passed too much, maybe she will need to start another one, and that one can be a cheese crumble. Or if she thinks that it's still moist and it's not dried, it requires more flour. So what does she feel exactly? That's the question.
All right,
And
Nina.
meanwhile, I'm just smashing the feta. Feta is a little bit salty fish. Cheese, salty fish. Salty cheese. So at this point, I added added the feta and the potatoes. I'm just going to be really a tiny bit of salt, and I'm being very generous about the cheese, the mozzarella and the kashkaval cheese. And I'm going to let a little bit outside so we can decorate our borekitas with some cheese and with some sesame seeds. Okay, so now we are about to come to the critical part, the shaping. So I'm going to give a small break. I'm going to arrange my station and I'm going to answer your questions meanwhile. And I like to know what's going on with Nina, right? And what's going on with her dough. Can she make a picture? Maybe after the class, I can reach to her and see what's going on. And she can connect us from Delicious Israel, deliciousisrael.com, also from Instagram. She can send her pictures, her contact numbers, and I can definitely write down because I can't see the picture right now. But I really like to make sure that our dough making friends is getting the result today.
So Vima, is this a good moment to ask a couple of questions?
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay. Leah wants to know if she can use Bulgarian cheese instead of the feta.
Definitely. And it's going to be very tasty.
How much potato, like in cups, if you can approximate, should you have for the filling?
It was like 1.5 cups. The idea is it's better to have more than having the left because I can always use the leftover at an egg and make a frittata in the morning. So, but because we are not doing big amounts today, so this is nothing. My grandmother used to make like 100 in one sit. So this is for the minimum amount of mixture we should do, like 2 medium size of potatoes. I had 3 small, and we are going to have like a half, like I think the amounts are written, like 100 grams of feta cheese and 100 grams of kashkaval or Parmesan cheese. Like 1.5 cup, let's say. The whole mixture is here. I have, I think, total 2 cups of mixture.
That includes the potato and the cheese.
Yes. Okay. The mixture is total.
Someone wants to know, they can't have added salt. Can they leave out the salt in the dough?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't like salt and if you want your dough to be without salt, why not?
And will there be an egg added to the potato and cheese mixture?
Who's that? Who asked that? Yes. Okay. So the tricky parts. I'm sure whoever asked that has done this recipe before. So what we're going to do now is separate the egg from white to yolk. What we're going to do is we're going to brush the yolk on the dough eventually, but the white part is going to be added to the potato mixture, which it's going to prevent the cheese to melt. It's going to hold together. So it's a nice trick if you guys are doing some cheese fillings, if you don't want the cheese to melt away. So that's. I just put everything in the same bowl. Okay. Sorry, my head is a little bit mashed up with the recent situations, but we're gonna manage this recipe tonight, I promise you. Okay. So the yellow came here, it's saved for later. And now heat it up. I'm just whipping it just a little bit, just to open it up. So it's gonna be easy to mix it. Yes. Something smells delicious. Yes, it smells so good. Okay, we are about to take our dough, but meanwhile, I can answer many questions. Like I'm totally free.
There will be no shortage of questions, so don't worry. Okay, so just to reiterate, which part of the egg are you adding into the mixture?
So I added the white part of the mixture. I just beat it up a little bit to open it up. And the yellow part is on the side. And we are going to work with it. Now let's take out our dough.
Guys, you never disappoint. This group never disappoints. Okay. If you don't want to use egg in the mixture, what would you recommend instead?
A little bit of flour.
Okay.
Or starch.
Also, questions about what kind of salt is used. Do you use kosher salt or do you use sea salt?
So fine table sea salt, because we don't want, it's a very delicate dough and we don't want to rip it off. Thick salt would rip the dough off and doesn't get dissolved well, and you won't taste the salt dissolved inside the dough. So we are about to open our dough and start working on it. So there are a few systems to work with it. First of all, this dough is so sticky, you don't need to work with the flour. That's the best part. It's not like a dirty work like all around. And the second thing is you can work with a, I feel like really now my grandma, you know, you can work with a roller bin and you can open your dough. But recently, my grandmother, she's now 85 years old and she doesn't want to deal with all this tool. She just uses her hands. Easy peasy. And she doesn't, you know, you can open up, cut with a cookie cutter and put your pastries, which I'm going to do half of it like that way. And then I'm going to show the other half of it, how you can do, you know, on the sides. She sits with the TV, makes 100 in one sit. So meanwhile, I want to show you, whoop, how strong our dough is. As I told you, if you want to do it, the dough today and the pastry tomorrow, the dough is going to be even stronger. So now we have, just we need to make sure it's not sticky. Okay, let's start with this half. So this is very old school system, which is, I'm going to cut it with a cup. I'm sorry, Inbal, I'm using the delicious cups. I couldn't find my cookie cutters. I'm using the delicious Israel's cocktail cups. So what you can do is you can make like, let's open up a little bit more. Okay. And then opening it up. And now we're going to put in the center a little bit. You can even play with it. The filling is not so liquidy. And put it exactly, not on the center, a little bit closer to the corner. And then you're gonna cover it up like very old school. And because the dough is very stretchy, you're gonna start closing up from the sides like a dumpling. And then we're gonna choose one side and lift it over and then stretch it. Oh, it's ready. So we are going to give this sweet half moon shape. Okay, so where's our tray? Yeah, here it is. So let's start putting it on the tray meanwhile. And then the tray is gonna enter to the freezer. Okay. Can I put it here? Okay. Let's put it on the side for the dishwasher. Let's continue shaping thank you.
Savim, can you show how thin the dough is that you're using? How thin?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So first of all, I'm coming closer, okay? So first of all, I don't do it too thin because the reason is I just need to stretch it more and I need some parts to play with it. So this thickness is, I'm very bad in calculation in thickness, but I think it's like 5 or 6 pages of a book. So we don't make it thin like a cracker because otherwise it can just rip off. Everything can just rip off. Okay. So yeah, that's the answer for the thickness.
And then you're stretching the dough over the cheese as opposed to rolling that round thinner, right?
Yes, exactly. So this is one system, as I told you, that you can go like, You can make rounds, like you can open all the dough, like you're making ravioli, and you can make rounds, and you can just start rolling the dough over the filling and create the half moon shape. And because, as I said, we didn't do it thin like a cracker, we still have a place to play with it. Now, let's go to the second system, which is my favorite system. Also, it's not very technical, or it's not very chefy, this technique. It's very my grandmother technique. Okay, what she does is she starts pressing from the sides. Okay, and I press the sides the same thickness that I told you about. Remember, 5 or 6 pages of a book. And then I'm going to put a piece of cheese, maybe a little bit more. And then I'm going to roll the mixture over the cheese. I didn't cut anything. I just rolled it and squeezed it. That's it. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to use our espresso cups. Then I'm cutting exactly where the cheese finishes and a little bit further. And then we have this sweet cake. So let's do it again. While we are talking, I'm working with one hand. I don't need my second hand. And while we are doing it, we are rolling it. And we are going to shape it. So if anyone is doing this recipe, or if anyone's going to do this recipe in the future, I really, really would like to see the pictures. So I would really appreciate if anyone is recording right now the video, or themselves, or taking pictures. Please put the pictures to Delicious Israel Instagram, deliciousisrael.com. You can always send it as an email, then we will upload it for you. And that would make me, first of all, the most happy, because all these people are looking right now. I would be very happy if 1 or 2 people, was doing it with me and catch you guys. Okay, let's continue. So I have a question for you. So every time we are doing this recipe with our guests, we are making a small trivia. Okay, so let's start with our trivia. So whoever knows the answer can write to the chat part. No cheating, no asking Uncle Google, no asking to other people. Whatever you know, you can write it there. So let's start. So when did the Sephardic people left Spain? Okay, which year was it? So this is our first question, and let's see if there will be some answers. And my second question is, the people from Spain who went to Turkey carrying this recipe with them to Turkey, which new thing they bring to Ottoman? There was Ottoman. So which new thing came to Ottomans? I can give you some options to answer. One of them is bechamel sauce. The other one is leather. And the third one is printing press. Okay, so choose your answer and you can write it on the chatting part. And now, the last question. So, there is a very special scientist, mathematician, who was the Christopher Columbus mapman, and also he was his physicist. And so his name has been given on the moon, a crater on the moon, one of the holes during those times, same years. So can you guess the name? So I'm going to give you some options. One of them is Leonardo DiCaprio. The second option is Steven Spielberg. And the third option is Abraham Zacuto. So yes, that was my great uncle, who was the mapman from Spain, who took to Columbus to India, but they thought it was America. And we need to check the pastries. Okay, 30 minutes. 30 minutes, and I want to show you which stage we are in. and how we understand when it's baked. Okay, it's been 30 minutes, 180 degrees, which is in Fahrenheit 350. So you can see the color. Yes, this says we're going to turn it. You see it under. So we want a little bit more brown. By the way, this is the best part when the cheese melts. It becomes like a cracker.
Savim, you may need to adjust your audio a little bit. It's a bit muffled, so it's been sometimes harder to hear you. Also, can you here say something wonderful?
Okay, we are continuing with our
Better,
Very-
yes, much better. Can you
Okay.
can you share about how much filling goes in each of the borakitas?
Sure. So let's talk about the size and how much we should fill it. Okay, I'm working with really small cup. It's like this is like something like 4 centimeters of a cup. Okay, if you're working with a small espresso cup, let me tell you in exactly, it's like 1 full teaspoon, even a little bit less from the teaspoon. So this is the amount. I keep doing it. I keep folding up. So from which countries people are joining us tonight? Like from mostly from the States, or do we have Europe?
Oh yes, would love to know if anybody's joining us not from the US. Always helpful to know. Canada, Israel, Alaska is not another country. Just joking, Georgia. Scotland, cool.
Yes, I really want to visit Scotland.
I mean, Texas might be another country, but Alaska, I still. Another Canada. Lots of Canadians. That's great.
And have they ever visited Tel Aviv? Have they been in the shuk? Have they heard about us? Delicious Israel.
Getting a lot of yeses, not yet. The Bronx also is kind of like another country. Many times. Never been to Israel. Well, now you have to go. Wonderful answers. Also been to Turkey in 1968. Cool.
1968. Wow. So I have a Turkish friend there. Do you still remember Turkish? Do you speak Turkish?
Was in Israel in May. Wow, Wendy, that's great.
Yeah, May is the best time to be in Israel. And it's, it's where all the rain is over and just before the extreme heat, and whoever likes cold sea, it's the best time to be in the sea, to make picnics, to make food tours, and to sit outside, and even a little bit suntan. Okay, this is how much is left. As you can see, we are here talking, chit-chatting, and meanwhile, we all already have like 11. Okay, we are at 11. So we are playing slowly and gradually, and for the last 5 minutes. So we are about to prepare our teas, and I want to give some advices how you should eat your burritos. Okay, so there are many options how we can serve burritos. You can serve in a dinner, and if you're doing it dairy, and you can serve it definitely in a fish night that you're serving fish. If you're doing it a meat night, you can do it definitely with meat and serve it next to the meat. And if you want, you can leave it on the Saturday morning and you can eat it cold. And a big trick coming out right now: once you bake it, okay, and you're going to leave it to the next morning, put it on the fridge, but don't cover it. It will keep the dough part, the cookie part, still crispy. So that's an important trick.
Sabine, I have two questions for you. One is whether it's possible to use phyllo dough for this, like store-bought phyllo dough in the freezer. The other question is that the recipe says to use a toothpick to make a roll under the pastry. What does that mean?
So in the recipe, there should be two recipes because we have one sweet recipe and one salty recipe. So the toothpick part is usually when you do it sweet, because at the end, when we do the sweet part, we put some syrup on it, and the hole we make under the dough just swallows faster the syrup. So that's a trick. But when you're doing the salty one, you don't need to make the hole. You don't need to use the toothpick. But that's a great question, by the way. And I can't wait to see if anyone's gonna try to dare to do the sweet one. And by the way, I want to tell you, this is a very child-friendly recipe. Definitely, I used to sit and do with my grandmother. My mother was working, but my grandmother used to train the help next to us, that she was the house help. And we used to, all of us used to sit and do together, and people used to teach to each other. So this is a really child-friendly recipe.
They
So I
remind me
really,
a little bit of sambusak, and which my children absolutely love. But now I'm gonna have to try this version and see if they love them even more. Um, what is the temperature of the oven for baking this? There was a question whether it's 450 degrees or 350 degrees Fahrenheit.
so in Fahrenheit, it's according how much your oven is strong. So if it's a very strong oven, I believe 350 degrees should be enough on fan. Please don't use the grill part. If you have a grill part, just on the fan, ventilating. And if your oven is not that strong, if you're not sure, you can always start with 355, 360 Fahrenheit, and then bake it to 30 to 35 minutes. The minutes change as we talked like 5 minutes ago, I think it was, when you see the brown color under. Okay, so this is the part. This is the leftover. And if you take the leftovers, make it round, and then make it a circle, and just put a piece of cheese on it, then you have like a cheese cookie. So if it's a challenging for the little ones, you can always give them a piece of those and make them to make this round shapes and just put finger inside and fill them with some cheese. You can always give options to play, because as I said, you don't have flour in this recipe when you're playing with it in the playing world. So it's very easy to play. It's like Play-Doh. Now, the parts just before we freeze our recipe. What we're going to do is, yes, I have some leftovers, and it's going to be Spanish frittata tomorrow, potatoes and cheese, which is great to have extra ingredients in your home for the following days. Now, let's talk about the topping, because I'm sure there will be question about it. And okay, Maggie told me to fix my microphone, sorry.
Savine, but before you jump in, there was another question about, I know that you baked the ones that are in the oven right now from the freezer. If you make them now, you can bake them right away. They don't have to go in the freezer, right?
No, you can bake them right away, definitely. The idea is don't try to leave it in the fridge in the raw form, because then the oil just leaves itself. But you know, if you just did it, you can immediately bake it. But if you don't want to bake it right now, the best option is to put to the freezer, and you can still put the egg brush and the toppings before you put to the freezer. Any other questions about the baking part? No? Okay. So this is the part where I'm brushing some egg brush. Okay, if you're a vegan person, or if you have some vegans, or if anyone is allergic to eggs, we have also other options to spread. You can spread tahini. you know, and tahini is one of the recipes that we like to do in the Delicious Israel house because tahini is all about Israel and it's a great option for vegan. It has lots of vitamins and minerals and protein and it gives you strength and it's a great substitute to peanut butter who has allergies. So we really like to work in this house with tahini. So if you don't want to use egg, you can always spread some tahini with some water and spread it. You can use poppy seeds as topping, the nigella seeds. You can put parmesan. You can put sesame seeds, did we say? We said sesame seeds, right? Yes. But if you have other ideas, please write us or write to send to Delicious Israel blog, or you can hashtag and put it to Instagram. If you have other ideas, what we can put as toppings to our cheesy, savory Borekitas, please let us know.
Question is, we have a couple questions. All right. Can you talk about the apple cider vinegar and the dough again? We had a couple of questions earlier. Like,
yeah, sure.
Is there another, could someone use white vinegar in place of the apple cider vinegar, even though I know your grandmother really strongly believes in the apple cider vinegar? That's one question. And then another question is, for you're doing an egg wash on top. Is it one whole egg beaten or is it the egg yolk from before?
So this is the egg yolk from before. We, as whoever remembers, we separated the egg from yolk to the white part, entered to the mixture with the potatoes and the cheese, and the yolk part has been brushed on the Borekitas. And the first question was if it has to be apple cider instead of the, you know, if we can use the other vinegars, right? That was the first question.
Yes.
So I'm sure I did it. I'm sure I was out of apple cider in the house, and I'm sure I had a regular vinegar and used it, and it all worked fine. So apple cider, it's like it might be, it's the difference between the baking soda or the baking powder. Okay, you can still make cookies with both. Sometimes they say put both, sometimes they say put this one or this one. So the difference is it will both work eventually. But I'm sure there's a difference that my grandmother felt when she was using the apple cider. So that's why I always continue doing the apple cider. So
they want to know you're putting more cheese right on top?
So yeah, I did one of them is with just sesame seeds, and half of them, and the other half is going to be with the cheese. And just for the fun, some of them will be with cheese and sesame seeds. And as it is, it's going to enter to the freezer like this way. And I'm going to prepare our station for the Borekitas, which is coming from the oven. The tea is ready. And we're going to join you, Maggie, drinking tea, tasting the Borekitas, and answering more questions and knowing more each other, maybe if we still have the time. Okay, for now, let's put this here. Oh, the oven looks perfect. It's coming now. It smells perfect. The smell is coming. Tonight, we keep the windows open and we're going to put some Borekitas in the corner of the oven and we're going to send the smell to our people, to our hearts. And we're going to send to our beloved ones and whoever is in our thoughts. We're going to send the smell of the Borekitas.
This is hard to watch during lunchtime, right? Because everyone is now hungry to eat some of these Borekitas.
It's so also great in room temperature. You can always carry it in your bag almost a half day, so it doesn't require. So if you take, you know, when you go to the picnic or the beach, you can always have it in a bag, in your bag, you know, to give someone, for yourself, for a snack. It's great. Sorry, you were saying?
Nothing. That's we had one question about flipping the Borekitas. If you you showed us the bottom before, so we could see that it's not ready yet, but you don't flip them over. They only bake on the flat side, right?
Exactly. True. Great question. Thank you. Yes, we bake it only from the one side, and we don't flip them over. I just flipped it to see it, and as I said, I'm a baker. I just touch without thinking hot things. But obviously, when you want to flip it over, you can use a fork, or you can use a knife or a palette just to flip it over. Okay, the smell is coming. It's telling me it's ready. Meg is raising her hand. She's like, "Yalla, let's." I'm starving here. It's coming out right now. Okay, here we have the wood coming out. Hot tray on the way. Dun, dun, dun. It's ready. By the way, it's a little bit less than 20 because I did this like 3 nights ago and put to the freezer. Maybe or maybe not. I may ate it or didn't eat it. So somehow it's less now. I don't know who's responsible from that. Okay. So let's do our serving. Okay, let's look at the color first. So you see, it's a sweet brown color. It's beautiful. So this is the color what we want. Okay.
Savine, we have a couple minutes left, and I want to leave a couple minutes for questions and a couple minutes for Inbal as well. But let me just share a couple questions that have come in. In terms of the type of potato you're using, I would say it looked like a russet potato, or what we would call like an Idaho russet potato. It's a big baking potato, right?
True. Yes.
Okay. And how long did you bake them for?
So I start with 30 minutes. The potatoes,
No, the pastries, the
the
Borekitas.
pastries. So
Yeah.
I start with 30 minutes. I always set the timer in 30 minutes. And then I check, and then I add the following 5 minutes additionally. And if it requires another 5 minutes, I'll add it again additionally. The only thing, the most important thing is you need to reach to the right color. And this is how you will be sure that it's baked.
And then the other question, I'm sorry, I feel like we didn't get to, was if you can use store-bought phyllo or puff pastry instead of making your own dough.
Okay, so definitely you can use the filling with those you guys mentioned. It will be very tasty Borekas, but it won't be Borekitas. But you can definitely use the filling for the other kinds of doughs.
Feel free to add more questions in the chat, and we will continue to give them to Savim. I want to make sure we get the opportunity to introduce Inbal Baum, who is the founder of Delicious Israel, a longtime friend. And as she reminded me, the last time, no, 2 times ago that I saw Inbal, we were having a Shabbat dinner at her apartment on the roof in Tel Aviv, and we had to run into the shelter in her apartment because of rockets. And that was about, my daughter was 2, so that means it was about 9 years ago. Is that right? So Inbal and I have a love of food and passion for all things food, but also have shared a unique experience together. So Inbal, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Shannon. You're right. In the 12, 13 years that Delicious Israel has been around, we have unfortunately seen far too many situations where we are in shelters, where we are in fear. And so coming together with community like this just means everything. And Shannon and the Nasher, you guys have developed such a wonderful, wonderful space and community. And so we're so grateful to be with you today. You guys had amazing questions. It was such a great spirit. I'm just going to put into the chat 2 opportunities that I want to mention. The top one is up until now, we've been working nonstop. A lot of so Delicious Israel, as I mentioned, we've been around for 12 years. We do food tours and cooking workshops in Israel, preferably in person, but of course, in these situations, everything shifts a little bit. So the last few weeks, many of our Delicious guides are currently on the front lines. So we've been doing a lot of work to make sure that they get what they need to be able to come home safely to us, to be able to continue to guide tours. Many of our guides are currently out of work. As you can imagine, tourism is shut down until who knows when. So the first link that I put in there, if you guys are interested, this is a brand new donation link that we're putting in. If you guys enjoyed Savim, please put in some money. This will go to people like Savim and people who are currently out of work. So besides that, we have some other campaigns going as well, which you can see through the Delicious Israel donations opportunities. And then the second link is if you guys would like to learn more about us, if you'd like to join our mailing list, some of the opportunities that we have. I am currently in Park City, Utah with my family now. So we're doing in-person opportunities. If anybody would like a similar opportunity to have Savim come and cook with your communities, please do let us know. That's an opportunity that we'd love to continue doing. We have all kinds of recipes from Savim's grandmother and beyond, and from Israel to share. We also do virtual food tours, so if anyone's interested. And these are opportunities to be together. As you guys can see today, it's so important to just have this togetherness. Being in the United States, feeling the incredible hatred against the Jewish community that is swimming around. I'm sure I'm not alone. I just got chills thinking about how important it is for us to have these moments of joy together, to strengthen ourselves and have the confidence to be able to do what we need to do for the long term. So the last opportunity, we are accelerating an opportunity that we've always wanted to do, which is in New York City. We're going to be doing an Israeli food tour of restaurants in New York that are Israeli. So you guys can kind of jump on that board if you're interested. And just thank you so much. Am Yisrael Chai. May we have many, many more of these together, and most importantly, in peace and with our hostages home with us together.
Inbal, thank you for those words. If you'll share those links again once more in the chat, I think a couple people didn't catch them. Also, you have to send me info about the Israeli food tour so we can hook up our New York audience with that. Thank you so much to Savim. You are an absolute delight, which comes across from the very first moment. And thank you so much for being here with our community and sharing your grandmother's Borekitas recipe and your wonderful stories of her. Maggie, thank you so much for being behind the camera. And thank you to Inbal and the Delicious Israel team. It's very likely we will continue to do more of these. It seems like everyone wants to be together in these difficult times. So thank you for being here. Look out for an email that will have the recording of the program and the links and the recipe once again. Thank you guys all very, very much, and stay safe, be well.
Thank you.